Hey guys, welcome back to the Humble Penny. We're super excited to welcome amazing guests, Kristy and Bryce from Millennial Revolution.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. So guys, welcome. We're in Colombia.
Yeah. So great to be here.
At Chautauqua.
Exactly, at Chautauqua.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought this day would never come. Because all the stuff that happened during this year. With the pandemic.
Yeah.
But
So,
we're here and it's happening.
exactly.
Yay.
It's awesome.
Exactly. So we thought we'd just catch up with you guys because, like, you guys, your story is absolutely amazing. Your journey to financial independence. Our audience, we teach, we talk about financial independence, we share our journey. So we thought you'd be perfect guests for this. So do you want to just start by telling people you don't know who you are, like where are you from, and like, you know, what's brought you guys here?
For sure. So I'm Kristy.
And I'm Bryce.
We write a blog called millennial-revolution.com, and we are also the authors of a book called Quit Like a Millionaire. So our journey started actually with trying to follow the traditional path. So I was living in Toronto. I was working as a software engineer, and so was he. And we were both desperate to buy a house because we wanted to follow the script of, like, you know, get a degree, buy a house, work until you're 65, and then retire with a pension. That was the script. Unfortunately, what ended up happening was the housing prices in Toronto just kept going up and up and up.
Right.
And didn't matter how much you saved, it just kept going beyond. Like, the goalposts kept moving. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so what we decided was we were so tired of going to open houses and being outbid.
Yeah.
And the real estate agents looking at us and saying, like, can you actually afford this?
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah,
look
yeah.
like you're 18 years old. Like, come on. We got so tired of that, and we're like, okay, what other path can we follow? And then, so that's when we discovered Mr. Money Mustache, J.L. Collins, and something called FIRE, which is Financial Independence Retire Early.
You may have heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we decided to pivot away from the traditional path and following the script into becoming financially independent. And another thing that really drove me, which was shocking at the time, was one of my coworkers was working like 13-hour days, 5 years, no holidays, no breaks. And at one day, he collapsed and almost died at his desk from stress.
Wow.
Yeah. And he had a mortgage to pay, and he was just following the script. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then after discovering FI, I was like, okay, let's pivot from buying a house and doing the traditional journey to doing the FI journey. And then as a result, we were able to reach financial independence in 9 years. So from
9 years.
Yes, getting out of school to becoming independent, 9 years.
So when we retired, we were 31 and 32, and we were the youngest retirees in Canada.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how exactly did you go about doing that? Did you have a side hustle? Did you have a business on the side? Or was it literally income from your day jobs that you were able to, like, tell us, how did you become financially independent?
Yeah, so it was, we had pretty high salaries as software engineers. So what it was like was trying not to follow that lifestyle inflation that was happening to a lot of our peers. And coming from a background of poverty, because when I was born in China and not abroad. And at one point my family was living on 44 cents a day. So having that like scarcity mindset was helpful at the time because I was able to leverage the higher engineering salaries and then just put that as much towards FI as possible. Our savings rate went from like 50% to like 75%, like the 2 years before we retired, to just fast track that way to FI. Yeah, so
75%.
Kristy is awesome at being able to live off of almost nothing because
I did have to live off
because she did have to do that.
Yeah.
And we just like a large part of it was kind of resisting the pressure to be like everybody else and buy the nice car and then like you know, expand your lifestyle, go out and drink and all this kind of stuff. But we had a reason for doing that. Initially it was to save up a down payment for a house, and then eventually we shifted it to something else, which is financial independence. But with Kristy, I always said that she's really good at building up like bricks, like gathering bricks and this kind of stuff, right? And she's like, look at how much money we have. But and then when we found financial independence, we realized, hey, we can actually build something with all these bricks.
Amazing.
So there's so many things to unpack here. One thing that really I think our audience will really relate to a lot is this idea that they feel priced out by the housing market. Because in places like cities like London and obviously other cities in the UK more generally, property prices keep going up, and a lot of people, millennials, Gen Zs, just feel completely outpriced.
Right.
Absolutely.
So how have you dealt with the housing thing? Because you've not decided to buy a house then, right? But you are now financially independent. So how do you talk to people watching and just share the reality of your living? Like how do you live How does that work?
Yeah, it was actually quite difficult because coming from an Asian background, like as immigrants, my parents had this belief that, you know, this housing is safe and gold is safe, like something that you can physically touch. That's the only thing that's safe. And then the stock market is rigged because, you know, back in China, the stock market is rigged, right? But that trying to get away from that advice, because that was very helpful back in the old country, but not in the new country. It's not quite helpful. Trying to get out of that mindset, and I actually had to do the math. So there's a saying that we say, which is like math that shit up, which is like you got to do the math, figure it out. Don't just trust what other people tell you, and then figure out what is the financially sound thing that you're supposed to do. So for us, when we try to buy a house, that like not only was it very difficult because there was all this bidding wars, I was able to see that other people who bought houses, like it's exciting in the beginning, but when you actually own that house, there's so many costs to home ownership that they don't talk about, right? They just kind of like when you go to a banking, like a calculator on the bank site, and then you're just trying to figure out your mortgage. It's like, oh, you're done. You just need to work out the mortgage, and if it's, you know, the same or less than your rent, then you're done. But there's all sorts of property taxes, there's insurance, there's maintenance that nobody talks about, because once you've already signed on the dotted line, the real estate agent, like you're done, right? That's it. You own it. That's your problem. So it's the problem is not just like don't buy a house ever. It's like do the math and figure out whether renting makes sense or buying makes sense. Sometimes buying absolutely makes sense. But when we lived in a major metropolitan city, the rent, when I did the math, the rent made more sense than buying the house because it was just so expensive, and I didn't want to be just working at my desk and only supporting the house. I wanted to own a house, not have the house own me. And so once we did the math, we figured out, okay, it actually makes sense to rent. So we saved a lot of money because we were quite strategic in picking a rental that was a 1-bedroom in a townhouse on the top floor. The landlord lived on the bottom floor, and we only paid $850 a month.
So you didn't get a house that's way bigger than you are.
Right.
You bought what you needed.
Exactly.
For that stage of your life.
Right. And that was quite a struggle, but you have to go against the tide when everybody else is like, look at my fancy house. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. But that is the sacrifice. Well, that's the thing that we wanted to do towards achieving FI.
Right.
And then like amazing things happened after we became FI, which I wasn't expecting. So we actually sold everything and decided to travel the world. Now,
hang on.
Yeah.
When you say you sold everything, do you mean like you literally sold everything
that we owned?
That you own?
Yeah, we sold all the furniture.
If it couldn't fit into a backpack, it wasn't coming along with us, basically, right?
Wow. So 2 backpacks. And what I thought we're gonna just do a 1 victory lap around the world, 1 year victory lap, and it's gonna cost maybe like $100,000 because I knew that vacation packages were like $5,000 a week, right? It's gonna be $100,000. That's okay. Like that's towards my priority of travel. That's gonna be fine. What we discovered was that traveling was less expensive than living in a major metropolitan city.
Wow.
That blew my mind.
Like when you were living in you guys live in London. You guys know how expensive everything is. The beer is like £5 and like this kind of stuff. But when you just hop over the channel, just going into like Europe a little bit, and then if you start exploring places like Eastern Europe or Portugal or southern Spain, all of a sudden your cost of living can drop dramatically. We didn't know that.
Wow.
We didn't know that. And what we realized is that after we went around the world for a year, and we had visited places like London, Bristol, like Ireland, Scotland, as well as Portugal, Spain, Eastern Europe, and then Southeast Asia. After that year, we added up all of the amount of money that we spent during that year, and we realized, hey, it's about the same as the amount that we were budgeting for our retirement. So doesn't that mean that we can just do this forever?
Wow. That's fascinating.
It surprised us. It was like a complete surprise to us too, and we've been traveling ever since. But I mean, like it was that light bulb moment where we just kind of like the math is telling us this.
Yeah.
And you're probably noticing for us, a lot of our decision making is guided by math.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even if it psychologically feels like it shouldn't work, if the math says it works, it works.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where and that's kind of how we designed our crazy life that we have now. People keep saying, "Oh, I wish I could do what you like. I wish I had the bravery to do what you did."
Yeah.
And the thing is, we didn't know that. We didn't intend to set out to do this kind of crazy, like nomadic lifestyle to show anyone up or anything like that. We just realized that's what the math says, and so there we are.
And you guys have been living this lifestyle for how long now?
So from 2015 to 2020, we lived this lifestyle. And then 2020, because of a family emergency and because of pandemic, we have been back in Toronto to support them. But then going forward, we're going to return to the nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah, we're happiest when we have our backpacks and then just the open road, or a ticket on a Ryanair flight.
They literally just have a backpack.
Yeah,
Kristy
exactly.
showed me like how she packs and the clothing, wardrobe capsules, like so many gems. If you're interested, definitely check out their blog.
Yeah,
more information on that.
We wanted to. It would be great to actually hear from you guys what sort of stuff you invested in, or you're even investing in right now. You know, such that your money is able to keep working and you're able to, you know, kind of maintain the lifestyle that you have.
Sure. I mean, like it's a variation on the traditional kind of VTSAX, like index funds that a lot of the American money bloggers write about. But if you're an American, that's going to work out just fine because that's going to be the most tax efficient for you naturally because you're American. Yeah. When you're international, so for us, we're Canadian, you guys are British. Yeah. We have to have a more global kind of perspective a little bit. So for us, we still do the indexing thing, but instead of going all in America, we split it between our home country, Canada, America, as well as an international index that includes, you know, Europe, Asia, and Australia, and the Far East. Yeah, so it's called the MSCI EFI index. Is the international index that we use. Do you guys have that?
Well, we have probably an equivalent one.
Yeah, you have like a FTSE or a DAX something
exactly,
or other.
S&P or whatever.
Yeah.
So thank you for explaining that. So essentially, you are still focusing on low-cost, passive strategies via the stock market. That is still your focus.
And the nice thing about when you go international, the Americans, their stock market is mostly focused on capital growth because their countries.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, because they're like, you know, their big companies are like
tech companies,
tech companies like Facebook, Facebook, Netflix, Amazon, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And those companies, because they're relatively young. I mean, like they're, you know, I don't exactly remember how old they are, but they can't be more than like 20, 30 years old.
20 years old. Yeah.
And then when you look at a British company, you're talking about British Petrol, you're talking about Nestle, you're talking about companies that have existed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So as a result of that, they're not really in their growth part of their maturity. They're quite mature, and as a result of that, they tend to pay a much higher dividend yield. So the S&P 500, for example, has a dividend yield of like maybe 1.5%, something like that, maybe like 2 on like when it's on a good. When it's good, but like the European index will traditionally pay like 3.5, and that has a much more it has a very powerful effect when you retire, because for the Americans, like a lot of the advice that they give is it requires you to sell part of their index funds in order to pay off their pay for their retirement.
Drawdown,
But for international audiences like the ones that we write about, like all of us write about, it's possible to just hold it and then just live off of the dividends. And then when you do that, you don't actually care what the stock market does because you own the units. And they just pay you. I like to describe it as it's like an orange grove, and every year like the oranges start growing, and at the end of the year when they're ripe, you just harvest it all, and you live off of that, and you never have to sell, and you never have to cut down any orange trees. And that's when you can structure your finances that way, it's really, really powerful because you literally don't care when the stock market crashes.
Yeah, which is what's happening right now. We're in a bear market. It's definitely going to recover because the market always recovers. But at this moment, we're not losing any sleep because the money that we spend is actually under the yield of the portfolio. So we don't need to worry about what the value is. So there's no
capital drawdown.
None.
So you're literally living off the income that you're generating.
There is no sequence of return risk when you have an international portfolio like this.
Wow, that's true. That's true financial freedom because literally assets are paying for your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's an advantage that we have that they have to actually learn how to do because their stock market does like it's just not as mature.
It's capital focused.
It's capital focused, correct.
So thank you for that. That was super helpful to actually understand, and also the distinction between the Canadian way of looking at things with a global perspective versus the US. Can you speak to some of the sacrifices you guys made to become financially independent? Just think back, and I know it's been a while, you know, but you know, I think these small details matter for everyday people who are working and you know trying to get to where they want to get to. What kind of things can you think about that were some sacrifices that you made on the journey?
And how you were able to not let kind of what kind of mindset shifts also did you have to go through because you were obviously working, in your professional lifestyle, you had your colleagues who were living a certain lifestyle, whereas you guys decided to kind of like downsize, live in a small apartment. How were you able to do that as well?
Yeah, I think it all goes towards your values, right? FIRE is a journey. Like, you don't want it to be a death march, right? You want it to be sustainable and something that you can get to FI and not hate your life. So for us, we knew that our priority was traveling. Like, it was not that important for me to have a lot of things to show off to my friends. I don't care about granite countertops. That's not who I am as a person. But I love experiences. And I feel that experience is something that pays you dividends later on, because when you actually look at those pictures, you're still happy, even though you took that vacation like 10 years ago. So that's what we wanted to focus on. So we were not, we didn't feel guilty at all to spend 5 to 10 grand a year on vacations. That was never going to be touched. That was just our vacation fund, and we will never sacrifice on that. But things like you said, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Other people went and bought a 3-bedroom house. We used car sharing services rather than owning a car. And we took the subway, and some people don't want to do that. They want to be able to just go anywhere they want, whenever they want. Just being able to just focus on your own, like, eyes on your own paper, and not try to compete with other people or compare. That has been I think that's the mindset that we were able to develop, and not tie the things that you own to your identity. I think my growing up in poverty actually kind of helped, because I had that perspective, from living in Asia, where it's like people are like, oh, but you only have a 1-bedroom apartment. That's like a sad life. I'm like, I used to like dig around for toys in a waste heap. So that's like relative to that, like you get that perspective that you're like, I am grateful just to have 4 walls and running water and having Wi-Fi. Like, that's already like above and beyond what most people in the world have.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Amazing. So to make sure I clarify this, so you achieved a fine 9 years. Give us a sense for how big your portfolio was in that period.
Sure. So when we left with $1 million. Hence the name of the book, Quit Like a Millionaire.
Yeah.
And that sounds interesting. And that sounds impressive. But remember, that's in Canadian dollars. So that's like 2 or 3 pounds or something. So and the amazing thing is when you we had living expenses of $40,000. So as per the 4% rule, $1 million, $40,000. But because we were able to use geographic arbitrage and travel to keep our costs from growing with inflation. Over time, our portfolio has grown since then. So back then in 2015, we left with $1 million. Now it's 1.8.
Wow.
So if anything, like the retirement journey is getting easier and easier and easier as you go along.
As time passes.
Which really shows the power of this stuff. That if you can pull this stuff, that if you can understand these concepts and apply them to your life and apply it consistently, it really just becomes an infinite well of money that just continues to just get fuller and fuller and fuller. Although wells don't get fuller and fuller and fuller. So
but I know what you mean. I get the point you mean.
The metaphor kind of ran away from me. So
so just to explain what geographic arbitrage is. So this is a term that I believe it came from the 4-hour work week, where it's the idea that you earn money in a place with a strong currency like US dollar or the pound, and then you move to a place with a weaker currency. For example, you move to Poland, they use zloty, or you move to Thailand, they use baht, and all of a sudden you can get ahead by traveling, because now your cost of living is so much lower that you can bank that gap. Like if you're trying to get to FI, you bank that gap. It's a much bigger savings rate. Or after you retire, you make your retirement safer because your cost of living is much lower, but you might even be getting a higher quality of life, because we did, because in Toronto it was constantly snowing, and we went to Thailand, our cost of living dropped by half, but then we got like sunshine and summer all year round, and we got like massages that were like $20 for an hour of massage, and food that was like $2 a meal. So you get like the high quality life with low cost, and you're able to use the strong currency that you earned in a place with weaker currency.
So you were saying that, you were able to eat out nearly every day,
pretty much,
have massages, have a poolside apartment, and yet the cost of living was way cheaper than what it would have been if you had stayed in Toronto.
Exactly.
So here's the real cool part, because the portfolio is an international portfolio that's paying dividends instead of having to harvest capital growth. The dividend yield on our portfolio was about $35,000 or so. But while we were living in Thailand, our cost of living for like spread out over the year, was about $20,000.
Wow.
So which is lower than how much the portfolio is paying you.
Yeah.
So every day we were sitting on the beach, we were making money.
More money, because that money goes back to growing income.
Exactly. We were making money while living on the beach.
It's like being it's like being paid to travel.
We were being paid to vacation.
Can you hear this?
Yeah, isn't it like it's like, what in the hell? How the hell did we manage to do that?
Exactly.
But that's just how the math works. And
wow, do you know what? That's so inspiring, and for me, it just opens my mind a lot. You know, even being here with you guys in Colombia, being out here by the pool, enjoying, you know, being out here in the mountains. It's not something I actually envisioned we'd be able to do one day, but you know, it's just pursuing this FI journey just opens up so many possibilities, and you guys, your lives are a testament to that. Let's speak about something much more sensitive, right? So one thing that people talk about when they are obviously young people, millennials, Gen Z, is this idea of starting a family, having children, all those kind of things. And you can go either way. You can either go on this journey not having kids, or you can go on this journey with having children. Is it something you guys considered at all on your journey? You know, was it?
Absolutely.
How did you navigate that?
Yeah, so that's one thing that one thing that I love about traveling is that you discover other types of lifestyle, other communities that you never would have known if you had stayed in your safe bubble in your city. So so there's a group of people that we met while traveling in Tulum, Mexico, and they are called the World Schoolers.
Okay.
So, yes.
I've been reading up on this.
This is very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, you should talk to some of them.
So this group was developed as a result of 2008, where some of the parents lost their jobs, and then they had to make money online, building like a freelance career, and like what you guys did, having going into entrepreneurship. And they realized that it was actually much better because they were actually able to spend more time with their children because they were able to have work-life balance. And then they decided to go to the next level, which is like move to inexpensive places like Mexico or Thailand or Poland, because in addition to that, now you can actually bank more of your savings. You have more time to spend with your kids. Your cost of living has gone down, and you can have your kids learn multiple languages.
Powerful.
So many people we met in the world schooling community, their kids speak like 3 or 4 different languages. They're very precocious. They're citizens of the world. So that opened up our eyes to, like, if we end up having a family in the future, we would absolutely follow this path of world schooling. And what's brilliant is that, like, the pandemic was terrible, and it had like, it's just like a traumatic event, but one tiny upside of it is that it got people thinking about different ways to educate their children. So now world schooling has become more mainstream, whereas before it was very fringe because people actually had to educate their kids at home anyway because schools were closed. And exactly. And recently I saw a post on CNN Travel on the front page in which they're talking about world schooling as an option that families have decided to use in order to live this lifestyle.
So, you know, a lot of this stuff we're saying, even people watching us might look at us and think, wow, you guys are so brave, you know, you travel the world, you know, you do all these cool things that I really want to do. How, imagine someone watching, they might not even realize that there's a fear of doing some of these things we're talking about. Do you have any encouragement or any advice for anyone who wants to live much more, you know, speaking to my presentation earlier, much more brave life financially? Do you just have any thoughts based on your journey so far for how people can actually almost break away from the shackles of the traditional way of looking at life, but start to maybe apply some of the things that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think what helped me a lot was not having that very like fixed black and white thinking, where it's like, okay, I have to like either become FI or like I don't even try this at all, and it seems so unattainable to reach $1 million, so why don't I give up, right? There's like different shades of gray. There's like middle points that you can get to, and you don't have to do everything that we're doing, right? Just being able to be like more financially literate and knowing how to get your money working for you, you could become partially FI. Like you could have a smaller portfolio where it generates a passive income, a yield that covers part of your expenses, and also now you can work part-time and reduce the amount of hours, right? And use that time to do what you love to do. Use that time to spend with the people that you love. And maybe there's other levers that you can pull, like maybe there's opportunities to work remote now compared to before, right? Can you negotiate maybe a sabbatical at work and then figure out how to use that sabbatical to lower some of your expenses and use that to generate some money to put towards your portfolio? Or just lifestyle design so that your life is not tied to one city, because We don't realize this, but we're actually paying to work. Right, because when you need that job, that high-paying job, or whatever job it is that's tied to a city, you're tied to that cost. You must live. If your job is in Toronto, you must live in Toronto.
That's so true.
Your job
if your
is
job's
in, UK,
in London,
you have to live in London.
to pay the London
and
costs.
It's so expensive, right? If you find a way to either freelance or find a way to make your work situation so that it is more location independent, then you can move to Poland. Maybe you can move to like Germany, somewhere that's less expensive, and then you can live a better quality of life without having to, like, even if you don't get to FI, you figure out the money, and then that's helping your journey to FI so that eventually you can quit completely, right? So there's many different shades of gray. It's not very black and white. It's not like I will become FI or I fail. There's many different ways. Let's work on lifestyle design.
I love that.
So we can just we can figure out what is the best solution for you, and let's get working on that.
So for a lot of people watching this will say, oh, well, that sounds amazing, but that's not what I see around me. Everyone's kind of following the traditional route. They're following, a script that they don't really realize that they are. How can they kind of be more open-minded, or I guess have the confidence to be more brave, have that financial bravery? Like, what works for you guys in terms of people you surrounded yourself with? What works for you
It's
guys?
the community, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like as you were saying, like, you're kind of the average of the people that you kind of hang out with. And
Thank you.
And if you,
I should clap to that. No, that's awesome.
And
that
if
is
you,
brilliant. That's
right,
good advice.
Right,
Yeah.
and like if you're with if all of your friends, for example, love to hang out in bars and drinking, you're probably going to end up like drinking a lot, right? And that's just kind of just a natural extension of the people that you hang out with.
Yeah.
So a big part of what gave us the bravery of doing that is meeting other people that are also on the journey as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, Choosify does a great a great job doing meetups all over the world, and then you can use the Facebook groups to find local meetups around there. What you guys are doing is forming a UK based community, which is so like you guys are doing awesome work.
We run Financial Joy Academy, which is a space for people of like-mindedness who are also on this journey of becoming financially independent. And there are other communities on free Facebook groups and all kinds of things. It's about seeking them out, really.
That's it.
But there's that realization that if you keep making normal decisions, you're going to have a normal outcome. So you're going to have a normal life, right? So it's like, normal in, normal out. You have to at some point kind of break out of the mold of being around people whose lives that you don't really want to emulate. And find people whose lives that you do want to emulate, because those are the people that are going to help you on your journey.
Amazing. So I've got this last question for you guys, which is, in the UK right now, and I guess globally, there's a lot of, talks about inflation, cost of living. We've got a cost of living crisis in the UK. Lots of people are struggling. So the mood or the tone in the UK is very negative at the moment. Lots of people are trying to stay afloat, trying to just survive and that sort of stuff, and just get by financially. And then there's this us talking about financial independence, trying to become financially free and stuff, which I think is a great message to have, because it gives you hope, it gives you a sense of direction. What general advice would you give anybody who right now might feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck and they may be struggling, for them to be able to focus perhaps in some way and get by this season of difficult cost of living and things, to ultimately one day, maybe in a decade or whenever, become that person who becomes financially free and achieves financial independence? Any general advice or tips that you might want to share with them?
So I know what it's like to struggle, and I think we all understand that. Like, you've struggled, we struggle, like we know what it's like I know what it's like to live on 44 cents a day, and to have that like sense of despair that this is never going to end. But the thing is, I think what's really important is to give yourself some empathy, because from growing up on 44 cents a day to where I am now, like that whole journey has taken more than 30 years. And I never thought that was possible, because when I was little, I didn't even know what a millionaire was. That just beyond my wildest comprehension. I just wanted a can of Coke. Like that was the symbol of luxury. Yes. So this is a journey. It's not instantaneous, and you're gonna have ups and downs, and sometimes you're gonna have that despair of like, I'm never gonna make it. But I think it's good to take the time and to be kind to yourself and realize realize that I am working on this and that you have the time to fix this. It's not again, it's not black and white thinking. It's not just like I'm gonna fail or I'm gonna make it. And there's many different ways to get to FI without just reaching the number, right? You can, like I said, there's like lifestyle design decisions you can make. You can make your job more remote. You can move to lesser expensive places.
Yeah.
So I just really want to tell the audience that, like, don't feel despair if you're not currently at this place right now. It is a journey, and just getting started, like just listening to this YouTube channel, just learning from Ken and Mary about, you know, financial bravery. You've already taken the first step towards getting more financially confident and knowing what it is that you need to do in order to get to that place. Don't be impatient and think that I'm never going to make there. You are going to make there. Like, we are living proof that we came from a very difficult background and we got to where we are today.
Yeah.
And you guys are too.
Awesome. This honestly, that's such brilliant advice. Thank you both so much for joining us here at the Humble Penny.
You guys have been amazing.
You've been absolutely amazing.
And it was so fun hanging out with you guys as you talk about.
You guys are so cool.
Let's do this again sometime. Huh?
Absolutely.
If anybody wanted to find out more about you guys, you know, where can they reach you?
Yeah, so you can find our blog at www.millennial-revolution.com. We run a free workshop because we want financial independence to go to as many people as possible. It's a right, it's not a privilege. So you can follow our free workshop about how just step-by-step investing guide on how we invest. We can also find our book, Quit Like a Millionaire, in which I talk about my journey to FI, and we talk about the different concepts we use to make our retirement recession-proof, and how you can also do this as well.
Awesome. Guys, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Being guests here at the Humble Penny.
Thank you for having us.
If you really enjoyed today's interview, this chat, would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. That just helps to get this message out to so many more people who we believe this will have a huge impact on their lives. And whilst you're there, hit the like button, people. Hit the like, because it helps the algorithm get this video out to so many more people. Thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. And as always, in all things, be thankful and seek joy.
Take
care,
care,
people.
guys.
Bye.